just laughing. I can't say it correctly. Alright, we don't have all day. Let's get started. Okay, so the number one topic we're going to talk about out of the 5, so that's why it's number 1, is unsustainable farming practices. Meaning, if we continue to farm the way that we currently farm, our soil is going to be depleted, we're going to have less and less crops, they're going to be more susceptible to bugs, we don't have enough fresh water, the list goes on, you can imagine it. So what's the solution to this? One of them is regenerative agriculture, where it essentially reverses climate change through better farming practices. Such as, and I'll read this directly from Google, improve water and air quality, enhance ecosystem biodiversity, produce nutrition-dense food, and store carbon. Okay, so why don't we already do regenerative agriculture? Well, we do, but the challenging thing is it's not as adopted as we would hope it to be. And the reason for that is that there are 2 main challenges to this solution. Number 1 is coordinating all the resources to actually make this happen. And number 2, there is a budget constraint to this. Coordinating resources is actually really hard. I'm going to spend a little bit more on number 1 because it ties in really well into number 2. Coordinating resources requires not only manpower to, say, help a farmer. First of all, reach out to a farmer and say, hey, we notice that you're having these practices. These could be more sustainable and make your ground much more resourceful, use less resources, increase profits, and it's just generally better for longevity reasons. The farmer's like, okay, that sounds great to me. How do I get started? And this guy pulls out a bunch of plans, and the farmer's like, yo, I'm not familiar with any of these plans. This looks overwhelming. I still have a family to feed. I'm stressed out. I got health problems. Not like, maybe they don't, but say they have health problems. Also, I'd rather spend my time playing Mario Kart. The guy's like, oh, okay, let me get back to you. Let's coordinate. You know what? I can figure it out. We just need you on board, Mr. Farmer, sir. And Mr. Farmer's like, okay, how does this work? I have a field of corn. How are you going to make my field of corn more productive and more sustainable? And the guy's like, okay, yeah, well, you know, we're going to give you this new type of dirt, and every month or every week, you should send us photos of every single line of your crop to show us that it's working. And the farmer's like, no offense, but that sounds like a lot of work. And the guy's like, okay, but we'll pay you to do it. He's like, okay, yeah, I'll take the money. I'll definitely send pictures of my corn every single week. So what happens is, and I'm not saying this is true, if I was a farmer, I might do this. So the farmer is like, okay, let me just take the money. And he's like, okay, I'm not going to do anything. I have the money now. This has already increased my profit. What is the guy who gave him money going to do now? Like, he already gave the money away, so they just count it as a loss and they just shut down the whole project. You know, this just like, it just seems like very inefficient. And I'm not a farmer, so I don't know if this is true, but this is kind of how I imagine it in my head. And this could be like very, even if the farmer complies, even if the other guy like provides amazing instructions, that's another thing to add to the farmer's plate that doesn't necessarily generate returns immediately. And there's a lot of room for error there. So how could theoretically crypto improve the situation? Also non-theoretically, because it's practical. Okay, so it seems like the main blocker is probably you can't track the current crops, and then asking the farmer to take pictures of the crops or making sure that the new methods actually work is a huge administrative overhead. And if it's not successful, then it costs a lot of money. And also, they probably can't hire someone to just go bounce off to each farmer's plot of land or crop every week if they're managing a few farmers. So those are all the constraints. It's mostly administrative and human talent intensive. So an alternative is, imagine there were like satellites in the sky, and the guy comes, it's like, yo, just agree to do these new methods, and if it's successful, you actually do it, we'll give you money automatically. And the farmer's like, sure, yeah, I'd be willing to do that. How do I automatically get the money? And the guy's like, oh, we automatically send it into either your wallet or to your bank account. And the farmer's like, okay, well, how do you know if I'm successful? Do I have to fill out any paperwork? Do I have to send you photos or anything like that? And the guy's like, no. What we have is satellites in the air, and they take photos, and we have this software that analyzes the photos, and when the crops are successful and they're more conservative with waste or whatever, it triggers something to automatically send money into your bank account. And I was like, oh, okay, I can just expect money if it's successful. We don't need to discuss the methods or anything. And the guy's like, yeah, if it's successful, you'll automatically get the funds. If it's not, it'll also trigger us to tell us it's not going well in the timeline that we expected, and we can help you out. And I was like, okay, That sounds great. So I wish I was good at graphics so I could illustrate this scenario, but it's actually happening already. So there's kind of like this huge database. It's like Google, but it's also not like Google, where you can upload any sort of data, and that's like the single truth of data. So one of them is like weather or satellite images. And there's this one company called Chainlink that coordinates all of this, and they gave a grant to a regenerative agriculture organization to actually do this with farmers, and you can read more about it at greenworld.org. Okay, I think I think that was a very tough first example. The second one is going to be easier now that it's along the same wavelength. But problem number 2 is we have uncharacteristically bad weather that destroys crops. And the problem to that problem is that crop insurance is really expensive. So if you're a farmer, one really bad crop could really knock you out, but you also can't afford crop insurance because it's really expensive. So I guess the solution is to have cheaper crop insurance. And someone make that? Well, there's a reason why crop insurance is really expensive. Number 1, it's really expensive to get weather data. You probably get weather data from satellites, which satellites are really expensive. And crop insurance is technically called parametric insurance. Again, it's just really expensive because of all the startup costs to it and maintaining a satellite in the sky. In addition to that, you need a full-time team to be looking at all the variables and crunching the numbers in real time. So talent, labor intensive, again, just like problem number 1. So the solution to this is exactly the same solution as solution number 1, which is efficient coordination and automation through smart contracts. And this lowers costs because you don't need as many people checking the variables. If you write a very detailed program, it could automatically crunch these numbers. The crypto technology that powers this is again called Chainlink, which is kind of like this huge archive of data that's like this one source of truth, and that sits on top of Ethereum. There's an actual startup that's working specifically on this problem, and it's called Aībᴏᴜᴜ if you want to check it out. Make sure to take the quiz and watch the first video in this series to earn crypto rewards. If you're confused about this, just watch the first video in this series. Number 3, we have rainforest deforestation. Huge problem. I don't feel like I really need to talk about how we have multiple undiscovered species dying because our rainforests are dying. There's so many different types of medicines that literally could have disappeared just right now or even 20 years ago. So a potential solution to this is protecting rainforests by something called tokenization, which essentially grants them rights like an asset, which sounds terrible now that I said this out loud. So the obvious solution to this is to protect rainforests. But what have been the challenges so far to protecting rainforests? Number 1 is probably transparency. I mean, I remember being a child and hearing about how important it is to save the rainforests. And they still need to be saved. So I think there's a lack of transparency there. Who are the orgs responsible for tracking all of this? Tracking for the companies that actually contribute to reforestation. And another thing, again, is just ties back into money. Reforestation needs more funding so that we can plant more trees or preserve the existing ones and they don't get cut down and used for profit. So how can we use crypto technology to solve this? Number 1 is accountability. Since everything on the blockchain is pretty much publicly available, say you're a crypto company, you're like, hey, we protected this rainforest and this is proof, satellite images, we own this much at this place at this time, and we paid for this to be protected. Another thing is if a crypto org starts doing this, there's other people who will want to join in. And the fact that we need more money, it also means that we don't need more money from the same amount of people. We need money from new people. We need more people to be caring about this. So it would be increasing the TAM, total addressable market, to fund reforestation through infrastructure. So there's a crypto project that already does this. It is Celo. And then full disclosure, they are my sponsor for this entire video series so that it's free. And they also sponsor the rewards that are given in this series, where if you watch the whole video, you learn, you can take a quiz at the bottom. Go to my first or second video if you don't know how to take the quiz or how to get your crypto rewards, but they're sponsoring everything. And I love working with them because they actually care about the climate. Each Celo token is, or coin, I don't know if token confuses you, but like each Celo token / coin is in part made up of rainforests that were converted into an asset. So now they're protected. And the fact that the rainforests are valuable kind of like make up the reserves of the coin and make up the value. So every time you use this token to buy anything is actually backed by rainforests and it's protecting rainforests. They've also started this organization called the Climate Collective, which you should check out. It's a bunch of crypto organizations that specifically tokenize natural assets like rainforests. Maybe in the future they could tokenize rivers or lakes or certain species of animals so that they're protected and so that they aren't used for profit by another organization. The fourth problem that we have is wasted energy coordination. So this is something I never think about. If you notice so far in this video, a lot of these things are infrastructurally related. So it's not on you as a consumer to do any of these things, but to advocate for like greater infrastructure scale solutions to these greater infrastructural problems in fighting climate change right now. And I don't really think about this, but think about the fact that your house is powered by energy. There is an energy company in every single city. Sometimes it's the same energy company in a region. Sometimes they're different. Every country typically has a different one. And think about the fact that a lot of them aren't modern. And when I say not modern, I'm not necessarily talking about transporting the energy into your residence. I'm talking about the fact that they're not administratively efficient and they take a lot of human power to basically hold it up. So right now we actually still have to figure out where the energy waste is and how to automate it so that it doesn't get wasted again. So the challenge to this is that the current software at all these utility companies are really clunky, really scattered. They're probably contracts set decades ago. You need to get those contracts out and the new contracts in that are way more efficient. So for example, if you have solar panels in your house and you have surplus and you're not going to use the energy for tonight, but another house nearby really needs it, or another business nearby really needs it because they have a lot of customers that day, you can sell your energy to that business. But how do you actually do that? What's the technology that actually powers that? Right now, the technology to actually be like, yo, your house has extra energy and that house needs, or that business needs energy, and we're automatically going to route it. That doesn't really exist right now. And so how crypto could help is that crypto technology could be the base layer. And so the energy grid doesn't have to be regulated to just cities. It could expand more frequently into regions, into the country grid, and automatically route energy. But if there are specific nuances, then you can build additional software and technology on the crypto technology base layer. So for example, if in Texas a lot of energy is wasted during the winter because sometimes we get plenty of sun, but we don't really use electricity as much as we do gas, and it also doesn't get too cold here. Maybe during that time, we have software that specifically routes it into a region that is more cold, maybe like a whole state over. And it automatically does that, and it has software specifically suited for those times. The name of the crypto technology is called Energy Web, and they're built with parity technologies, which is associated with Polkadot. I had made a video about Polkadot before, so I highly recommend you check it out if you want to know more about this. Energy Web is the website. It's really hard to understand their page, to be completely honest. And the fifth and last problem that I will be sharing today is that landfills are filled with old but usable technology, and it's just not being used right now, and that's really wasteful. So the potential solution to this is upcycling old hardware, which means we find new use cases for this old but still usable tech hardware. So challenges to this is finding new use cases for this old hardware that other people don't want, and actually having people excited to use it for a new solution. So very specifically, HDDs are hard disk drives. Get better every single year. They make your computer run a lot faster. They can store more data. So ones that can't run as fast or can't store as much data typically can tend to be discarded. Well, these can actually be upcycled to mine crypto to track carbon credits. Okay. I know that was a lot. This sounds like pie in the sky type of thinking, but actually the World Bank is using this technology, which is pretty crazy. So the World Bank is actually doing this where they're using this crypto platform called Chia because they want an open source technology where they can track how much carbon is being captured. And they want to track how much carbon is being captured because having more carbon in our environment obviously contributes to environmental change and greenhouse gases and stuff like that. The World Bank can actually reward certain organizations for reducing the amount of carbon in the atmosphere and then figure out which organizations to highlight or even recommend for grants and stuff like that. Now, why did they use the crypto technology called Chia? Chia claims to be the greenest type of crypto available, using the least amount of energy compared to every other crypto technology. And my crypto miner that you can see in my famous TikTok actually mines Chia. And shout out to my friend who's the founder of Chia, Evergreen Miner, for telling me about this, because I was really looking for a fifth actual problem with climate that crypto technology can specifically solve. If you want to know more about this initiative, it's called the Climate Warehouse. If you go to their website, you can look down under the World Bank. So I have some concluding thoughts on this, which is my take on climate x crypto trends to watch out for in the next few years. I wish I actually talked more about this now that I just finished filming the whole video, but I thought this was too easy and it wasn't like a real climate problem. It just seemed like, oh, like greenwashing stuff. But these will be a lot easier for you to understand, so I actually might put this in the beginning. So number one is banking with crypto technology that the user doesn't know about. An example of this is with Celo. They are 8 times carbon negative, which means any transaction on their blockchain removes 8 times the amount of carbon it actually costs. So for example, if I'm doing banking and instead of 1% of 1% interest on my savings account, I actually get 5% or 25%, which I'm actually getting right now, 25% on my Celo tokens, I'd be more inclined to use my Celo tokens and transact. But if nowhere accepts Celo tokens right now, I can't use it. I'm just kind of using it as an investment vehicle right now. Well, what if a bank actually paired up with Celo so that you're actually using Celo's technology, but on the front end, it's actually all, I live in America, so USD. And if you actually need to draw money out, then they convert it, that USD, convert the Celo into actual USD, and then you can use it. Another thing is think about all the times that you go online shopping or you make a Google search. It costs a certain amount of energy to do that. Imagine if it was all powered by crypto transactions, and so that you have carbon negative transactions by default. That way you don't actually have to think about the consumption of energy, because no matter what you do, carbon gets removed. Another thing that I didn't feel was necessary to talk about, because there's a lot of hate on NFTs, is eco-friendly NFTs. You can watch my video here about NFTs and my take on NFTs. But eco-friendly NFTs are, hey, like there's this photo of this tree in the Amazon rainforest. Well, let's turn it into an NFT. You can adopt that tree, you can adopt that part of the rainforest, and it could be powered by carbon negative transactions by default. So when you buy it, you remove carbon and then you preserve a tree in the rainforest. Another thing is that crypto mining takes a lot of energy. You can see it in one of my previous videos here about whether crypto is actually good or really bad for the environment. We are just going to have to develop better technology so that crypto mining is not as inefficient. And the last one of my friends is actually working on this and I'm really excited about it. Plant art that captures carbon and can be tracked by crypto smart contracts with rewards. So basically, there's a lot of ways to physically do carbon capture. One of them is with algae, and algae is actually really beautiful. What if you as a consumer could buy little plots of algae, hang them up in your home, and you can actually track the amount of carbon that you're removing from the world? That would be pretty cute. We already have houseplants anyways, except for myself. And what if you actually get rewarded for removing carbon through your algae wall art? That is an idea to be explored. Thank you so much for watching this video. My next video is going to be about tackling climate change through crypto and how you can do it. Don't forget to take the quiz and watch the first and second video of the series to figure out how to actually submit everything so that you can get your crypto rewards. And I'll see you guys in my next video.